once again, and now part number 7B, which is talking about some effects. Mostly I'm gonna be just showing you how to use reverb. Really what I'm gonna do is just introduce you to the concept of reverb and some other effects that if you're not using at this point, you should be using, or you should be dealing with them and playing around with them to understand them, especially for sample beats. So this one's gonna be very short. Let's go right away and start here in Logic. I have a track with an acoustic guitar loop. Let's give it a listen. So that's already, it doesn't sound that great, right? It's just a MIDI instrument. It's not a real, and the reason I wanted to do it on a MIDI instrument is because I wanted to then change pitches later on, by changing the octaves later on in the tutorial. So right now this is your track strip, right? Your channel strip, where it's showing you what instrument it is or what patch it is. It doesn't have an EQ on it, and it has a compressor and it has a chorus to it. So if I play it and I turn off the chorus, it sounds different, right? So before I go and add some reverb to it, just as a general understanding where your audio effects are in this area, right? So every time you click here, this drop down menu is gonna come up, and you have anything from amps and pedals to delay, distortion. I'm gonna be talking about these a little bit in this video. You have your compressor, which we already have in this track as part of the patch. You have your EQ, which we spoke about in part 7A. We have filters, imaging, modulation, pitch. I'm gonna be talking a little bit about the pitch shifter. And if I go to the audio units, and you had Logic GarageBand, you can certainly go in here and have some of the old audio units, and I'm gonna bring the pitch again. And you have a lot of other stuff in here. Obviously I'm not gonna cover all of them in this video because I want to keep it as part of making your sample beats. So I'm just gonna improvise here and go over specifically over reverb, just the different reverb types that you have and what they do, and some of the other ones, and that's it. So to add reverb to this, you can do it in different ways. So let's go down here and go to reverb, and let's go to the platinum verb first, which is one of the older reverb methods that you could use in Logic Pro. And this is what you get when you go in there in the platinum verb. So what does reverb do? You can use reverb effects just to simulate how the sound is bouncing back from a room. That's really all reverb is. So you have this guitar sound, right? Let's say, for example, let's think that was recorded in a studio, which is a smaller room. But let's say that if you were to record that outside of a studio, in the outside, at the wind sounding like it is right now, or in a bigger room like a church or something like that, it certainly should sound different because the sound's gonna travel differently inside that room and bounce back. So one of the first things that is gonna be affected, or that is tied to reverb itself, is the size of a room. So platinum verb right here gives you some of these options here where you can alter the shape of the room, and you can see graphically how that is supposed to be represented. And you have your output could be more dry, more wet. You could have all this other options here to alter your sound, because it's depending on what parameters you put on this room, it's how your sound is gonna bounce back off of it. So let's give it a listen with this reverb default that we have. And right now I don't think it's gonna do much. Unless I make it wetter, right? Because dry would be how it was sounding in the beginning. Notice there's a little bit of an echo effect, right? And if I increase the time, it's gonna take longer to produce that. If I take out some diffusion, let's give it a high cut. Make the sound less dry. And the reverb itself, just give it less spread and more initial delay. Now that thing, it's completely different to the original one, which was this. Which is a very well-defined keystrokes, right? And the strumming in the guitar. Now when I put that reverb on, it's as if the sound was just almost getting lost in some echo and taking a lot of time to bounce back. So how can this help you with your let me just bring it up again because I want to go through some of the presets here. So bottom line, this is good when you are using samples because you can make them sound a little bit more realistic depending on the source material that you have. If your quality is not that great, or if it's straight from vinyl and you wanna make it sound as if it was through a phone, like an old telephone, or if it was someone inside a bathroom or something similar to that, you would use reverb, right? And make that blend a little bit better, give it some sort of style, more old school style. So that's a good way of using reverb. I don't use Platinum Reverb almost at all. I use the Reverb Designer because it's the one that's now current in Logic Pro, or the current way to go about your reverbs. But it's a good starting point for you because it has a good amount of presets that are. It's not a huge list, but they're straightforward, right? Like ambience, big room, church. Let's try church, and you can see how my settings change. So keep that in mind, going through the different presets, how they change, so you understand a little bit more exactly how about sound traveling inside a room, if you have the time to do so and want to get a little bit more proficient at it. So that's definitely a different sound. Live Club, if I go to a different preset. Let's go with Reflector Rooms usually. I thought it was gonna be a little bit different. I guess in the amp designer it's a little bit easier to visualize it, and so on and so forth. You can keep doing that, but now I'm gonna turn off that plugin. The other way that I would recommend to use reverb is with the Space Designer. However, here is a different concept that I haven't really mentioned at all in my other tutorials, and I'm gonna do that in the mastering and the final tutorial, is using buses to then send your effects through. And this is true not just for reverb but any other effect really. So I'm gonna create a bus, and that's gonna bring this auxiliary channel, for which I'm gonna add now the audio effect. of a Space Designer reverb, and this is what the Space Designer does, and here you have much more control, and you can, change graphically. You can change how the reverb is gonna come out, and I'm not gonna go through all of these knobs and options, because that's really for a separate video only talking about reverb. But here, when you're starting to use this, you can start by picking one of the presets. You have much more presets, a larger amount here. So let's go with a medium space, a hall, and let's say small guitar hall. So let's try that. That's my original sound. I'm not gonna hear the effects of the reverb until I go to my auxiliary channel and pretty much use this knob to enable the amount that the channel is, the amount of reverb that the channel is letting through. So let's see that in real time. If I bring it all the way up, you can hear a very distinct difference. And you can set the amount to however you want. So that's pretty much the second concept, and the last concept I wanted to tie to using reverb as an effect. It's using buses to create an auxiliary channel, and then through that auxiliary channel give the amount of reverb that you want to put in your track. So it's a neat way of doing it, and I recommend that you experiment with that. And if you want, you can use Logic's own help. If you go to help and go to Logic Pro help, you can type in there reverb and read through those topics there if you want a little bit more in-depth information on the theory and the technology and the not the do's and don'ts, but the what creates reverb, what reverb can do. There's not a lot of complicated stuff behind it. It's, again, bringing it to the basic point, how sound bounces back from a room. Now going through another one that I wanted to talk about is delay. So here you have the delay designer, which is very good, but again, if I start talking about it, it's gonna take me a lot of time. You can go through the presets if you want, but a separate video only targeted for this will be better. All I want to say is that delay is also a very good part of using in your mix, and same as EQ and basic mixing. The one that they use a lot specifically for samples, especially if they sound grainy and vinyl like, is tape delay. And there's a few presets here, not many. I don't like them that much, but let me zoom this a little bit. I'm gonna play it. So what you need to concentrate more when you start using delay is your output, right? How much dry or how much wetter you want it to sound. Drier obviously is gonna resemble more the original sound, wetter is gonna represent more your settings here, right? Your delay, your character feedback, and modulation. So a simple way of putting some delay, maybe putting it at 50%, 60 or 50%, and then specifying the note frequency, right? So if I go and make it 8th notes, it's gonna every 8th note delay what's being played there, which obviously is gonna give you an effect like the one you're here right now, as opposed if I make it longer, like half a note. Which is I don't know if you notice it, every half note, like you hear that little echo, tick, or delay. So for something like this, like a guitar, I will probably make it quarter note. So like it sounds like because this strumming here, it's close to, I don't want to say it's close, it's really all over the place, but if you were to average it, it probably averages to a quarter. Every quarter note there's a change, a transient change. So that's what you're gonna get. So also your frequency, right? Which ones you want to cut is gonna affect that. Let's say I just wanna leave it at the higher frequencies, which is what a guitar instrument would probably produce more higher frequency notes. If I wanna box it up a little bit with my lower frequencies, I don't know if you notice how now I don't have as much of that delay effect because my lower frequency notes in here are less than my higher. And there I can tell more that there's a delay. So it's a good way of also altering your sound. And I just realized that I hadn't saved this file. So when I press save, I got the Rembo. I'm gonna leave it there. I'm not gonna edit this out of the video. I just want to feel ashamed of myself for not saving this earlier before starting to record the video. And here it is. I'm just gonna go right away and call this effects. Now it's saved. Sorry. So it's a good way of cleaning up, giving more realistic feel to your sample sounds or MIDI sounds as well. You know, as you notice, I'm using a MIDI instrument and loop here. So it's a good to have also. Good to have delay. I'm gonna turn it off. I wanted to show distortion, overdrive specifically, but before I do that, I'm just gonna go to pitch. Pitch. If you are like me, that have a knack or a liking more to sample-based producing, something like Ninth Wonder, J Dilla, DJ Premier, so on and so forth. You Kanye, you know that pitching sound up and down is a must-have, right? Like you can leave a sample as it is, but pitching it up is gonna give it that that old school sample feel. So two ways that you can use pitch effects efficiently, easily. One is going to pitch shifter, and this is straightforward, right? You have your mix knob, which means that it's similar to the wet and dry, right? So if I mix it 100%, means that I'm gonna have the pitch change is gonna take over the original signal or the original sound. If I have it 50%, you're gonna hear some of the original sound through it. So that's gonna give you some level of control, and then you can fine-tune by cents and you can alter by semitones. So that's also similar to the ESX24 sampler, where you can alter the pitch with the similar amount of semitones or cents. The ESX24 sampler, something that I didn't mention in that tutorial, is that doing that for longer sections of sounds or loops is gonna alter the tempo. And now I'm not sure if I did mention it, but just in case, it's gonna alter the tempo. So this pitch shifter is not gonna alter the tempo. So let's just take a listen again. So I'm having 50% of the pitch effect going through. That's 100%. And the only downside to the pitch shifter, and I don't know if that's a Logic Pro thing, is that if you go crazy like over 6 or 7, you will get artifacts. This was a MIDI, and you were getting that like grainy, broken down sound. Those are artifacts. So that's a drawback, you know. I use pitch shifter and the AU pitch more than anything, but sometimes I'm constrained with that, so I have to go the long route and use the fine-tuning of the ESX24 as if I had a MPC, and then I have to go back and resample and find the tempo again and just square it out again if I go over the tempo too much. But it's a cleaner sound and it won't create artifacts as much as this. Of course, if you go crazy, it will, but I haven't noticed that much. So that's one way of doing pitch. This is mainly the one that I use when I'm not gonna make very crazy, over the top changes in pitch, especially for vocals. So keep that in mind. And then the second way of go to your audio units and then go to your AU pitch, and the AU pitch is gonna do the same thing. You have your effect blend, which would be like the mix bar that we had there, and then the pitch, you just change it by cents. So it's a finer or a more controlled way of changing pitch. So let's say that you wanted to alter that just a tiny bit because you liked how it already sound, then you probably better start by using the AU pitch and just changing some cents up and down. And it's also gonna be altered by, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to select everything, bring it out a few octaves. At that point, it's so high that you probably don't have. But that's another way of changing your pitch, right? Just making adjustments in your key. That's when you're dealing with MIDI. When you're dealing with sound itself, you could alter the pitch similar to this with the flex pitch, but I am not gonna go into that here because it's just gonna be total confusion for you guys. So now, with pitch out of the way, let's see, what was, yeah, last thing I wanted to talk about, distortion overdrive. So when you go here, this is what you get for overdrive. So what overdrive does is that it emulates the distortion, you know, produced by a field effect transistor, and this is straight from Logic's documentation. But what that, in layman's terms, what that means is that it amplifies, you know, creates like a hardware amplifier effect, and it can make your sound warmer, or usually I use it more for warmer, you know, making your sound warmer, which is good to use for samples. So I don't have a sample here, I just have this MIDI, but let's just give it a quick listen. So that's my original sound without overdrive, and with the default settings, if I turn it on, you can definitely hear it's warmer. So you can make it less warm by changing the tone. And it also gives you a little bit of gain, right? Or I can make it warmer. And this would be similar like if it was inside a box, right? So that's also something that relates a little bit to reverb. And you can also change your drive and your output. I use this overdrive fairly often, but I use it more sometimes for drums. If I have like a snare that sounds very dramatic, very big, but I want to make it even more dramatic in the mix, I would give it some overdrive just to take it over the top a little bit, and then at the mastering stage I would play with the output gain and just make it sit well with everything in the mix. So let's see, what else do we have here? Yes, I am improvising. Yeah, that's really what I wanted to cover with effects. So yeah, with that I'm just gonna be closing this part 7b tutorial on some effects that if you're not using them, and if you're a beginner making sample beats, make sure to go through this, start using them, start understanding them. As always, go through Logic's own documentation. It has some good info in there, so not a waste of time to do that. And with that, really that's all for now. As usual with my other videos, like, comment, or dislike if you didn't like this video. Share it, help me spread the word. Subscribe, stay on top with my other videos. Visit me on social media, you should have it in the screen there, and also my webpage and my email, which should also be on the screen as we speak. In later series, when I finish this series and I start making my other videos, this portion where I start to plug everything that I have on the internet and social media will be cut off, because I will just have my lower thirds with all that information there, so you see it as the tutorial goes through. I don't have to repeat it over and over. But if I have to do it for now because I don't have that, and if this is the first video that you see on my channel, then I have to let you know where I'm at too, so you can follow me and support. So thanks for watching once again. See you in part number 8 with some mastering basics. Peace out, YouTube.